Imagine being absolutely certain about something you see with your own eyes. The answer is obvious, simple, undeniable. But then the person next to you gives a completely different answer. Then the next person does the same, and the next, and the next. Soon, you are the only one in the room who sees things differently. Your confidence starts to shake and becomes evident the quiet power that the group holds over our perception of reality. Today on The Gloved Historian, the Asch Conformity Experiment. 1951. The world was still recovering from the devastation of the World War II. Millions of ordinary people had followed orders and participated in destructive systems simply because everyone else did. This left psychologists with a disturbing question. How could so many ordinary people agree with things that were clearly wrong? Was it blind obedience, fear, or was there something deeper in human nature that made us vulnerable to the influence of the crowd? One young psychologist suspected the answer might be simpler. What if people were willing to deny their own perception of reality just to avoid standing alone? Psychologist Solomon Asch, born in Poland and raised in New York, became a professor at Swarthmore College, where he studied social influence, perception, and group behavior. Unlike many psychologists of his time, Asch was fascinated by a question that seemed almost philosophical. Do we see the world as it truly is, or as society tells us how to see it? His curiosity to understand how group pressure could shape behavior led him to design one of the most simple experiments in the history of psychology, but its results would become one of the most famous discoveries in social psychology. The experiment was divided in two parts: the test with and without critical trials. The 50 students who participated were told they were taking a simple vision test. Participants entered a room where several other people were already seated. However, all but one of the people in the room were actors who were part of the experiment and knew exactly what to do. Only one person was truly naive and unaware of the setup. It consisted of showing two cards to the group. The first card displayed a single line. The second card showed three different lines labeled A, B, and C. One of these lines clearly matched the original line, and each participant had to say aloud which line matched. There were 18 trials in total. In 12 of them, called critical trials, the actors were instructed to intentionally give the wrong answer. Imagine the scenario. The first card shows a line that clearly matches line B on the second card, meaning line B is obviously the correct answer. However, one by one, the actors started saying that line C was the correct answer. When it was the participants' turn, they had to decide whether to follow their instinct and give the correct answer or submit to the pressure of the group. Asch measured how often participants conformed to the group's incorrect answer. About the 75% of participants, 3 out of 4 people, conformed at least once during the 12 critical trials. Meanwhile, about the 25% of participants, 1 out of 4 people, never actually conformed. Therefore, on average, 32% of responses showed conformity. About 1 out of every 3 answers followed the wrong majority. The second part was the control group. Was done without critical trials. The experiment was done without the actors. All the participants completed the same line-matching task alone or without anyone intentionally giving wrong answers. Because there was no group pressure, participants could rely only on their own judgment. Less than 1% of participants gave a wrong answer. Even more fascinating is that by having one of the actors give the correct answer, while the rest of them gave the incorrect answer, dramatically lowered conformity. In this situation, just 5% to 10% of the participants conformed to the rest of the group. Therefore, when participants gave the wrong answer in the main experiment, it was not because the task was difficult, but because they felt pressure to agree with the majority of the group. This helped demonstrate that social pressure can influence people to conform, even when the correct answer is obvious. This psychological pressure appears everywhere, in corporate meetings, in politics, in classrooms, even on social media. Imagine being in a meeting where a manager proposes a clearly bad idea. Everyone around the table nods and agrees. When your turn comes, you hesitate, you know something is wrong, but suddenly, disagreeing feels uncomfortable. So you also agree. And just like that, the illusion of agreement grows stronger. Many other psychologists have also studied this type of psychological pressure, like Rod Bond and Peter B. Smith, with their large meta-analysis that combined data from 133 conformity studies across 17 different countries to identify broader patterns in human behavior. Their findings showed that conformity has changed over time. For example, in the United States, levels of conformity have decreased since the 1950s. Culture plays a significant role in how people behave in social situations. In collectivist cultures, such as Japan, Hong Kong, China, people tend to value social harmony more, so the levels of conformity are higher. And in individualist cultures, such as US, UK, Canada, people tend to value independence more, so levels of conformity are lower. as well as the work of David G. Myers in social psychology and Robert B. Cialdini in Influence, the Psychology of Persuasion. Both of them got to the same conclusion. There exists a powerful psychological mechanism known as social proof. When we are uncertain, our brains assume that the group must know better. What happens to our brain during the situations? Modern neuroscience shows that conformity is not just psychological, it is neurological. When we disagree with a group, the brain regions associated with conflict and anxiety releases cortisol. But when we align with the group, the brain's reward system activates, releasing dopamine. Social approval literally feels good. This has deep evolutionary roots. For most of human history, survival depended on belonging to a tribe. Being rejected by the group could mean exile, starvation, or death. Our brains evolved to treat social agreement as safety. Because human beings are highly influenced by their social environment, our perception of reality is constantly shaped by the people around us. But it only takes one dissenting voice to weaken the pressure of the crowd. No doubt that courage turns out to be very contagious. What us humans learned from this experiment is that we are social creatures wired to seek harmony with the group, and the illusion of consensus can collapse the moment someone dares to question it. Therefore, next time you find yourself in a room where everyone seems to agree, it may be worth asking a simple question. Is this truly correct? Or am I simply following everyone else?